The morning sun hadn't yet risen when Tina's alarm clock jolted her awake at 4:30 a.m. She reached over quickly to silence it before the sound could wake her two sleeping children in the next room. Their small two-bedroom apartment felt especially quiet in these early morning hours, a stark contrast to the chaos that would begin once her kids were up and preparing for school. Tina rubbed her eyes and sat up slowly, feeling the familiar ache in her back from yesterday's double shift at Molly's diner. She glanced at her phone and saw a notification from her banking app, a reminder that her account balance was low. Just $78 left until payday next Friday, she sighed, pushing away the worry that constantly lingered at the edges of her mind. One day at a time, she whispered to herself, a mantra that had carried her through 3 tough years as a single mother. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet as she padded to the bathroom. The mirror reflected tired eyes, but Tina had mastered the art of covering exhaustion with makeup. Her customers never knew she often ran on just 5 hours of sleep. The generous tips she received were a testament to her ability to keep smiling through the longest days. In the kitchen, she prepared lunches for her children, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Ben. Peanut butter and jelly for Ben, turkey and cheese for Lily. She tucked handwritten notes inside each lunchbox. Have an awesome day. Love you. With a small heart drawn at the bottom. These little touches mattered to Tina, small ways to be present even when work kept her away more than she liked. By 5:15 a.m. she was dressed in her blue uniform, hair pulled back neatly, name tag polished. She gently woke Mrs. Gonzalez, their elderly neighbor, who watched the kids in the morning and got them off to school in exchange for weekend meals and help with her groceries. You look tired. Mija? Mrs. Gonzalez said, patting Tina's cheek affectionately. You work too hard. I'm fine, Tina assured her with a genuine smile. The morning shift isn't so bad, and I managed to study for almost 2 hours last night. The community college textbooks stacked on her small kitchen table were evidence of her determination. At 32, Tina was halfway through an associate degree in business management. Each assignment was completed late at night after her children were asleep, often when her eyes could barely stay open. The early morning bus was nearly empty as Tina made her way across town. She used these quiet moments to review notes on her phone, preparing for next week's exam. The other passengers, mostly service workers and construction crews, had the same weary but determined look. They exchanged knowing nods, members of the same early morning club. Molly's diner sat on the corner of Main and Oak, a beloved local institution that had served the community for over 40 years. The neon sign flickered to life just as Tina arrived. Inside, the familiar smell of coffee and bacon greeted her as she tied her apron around her waist. Morning. Sunshine, called Chuck, the 60-something cook who had taken Tina under his wing when she started 3 years ago. Ready for another wild day? Always, she replied, setting up the coffee station. Thursdays are never dull. The morning regulars began trickling in at 6 a.m. sharp. There was Frank, the retired mailman who read his newspaper in the same booth every day. The construction crew from the site 2 blocks away, their boots tracking in dirt despite their best efforts to wipe them clean. 2 nurses ending their night shift hungry for pancakes before heading home to sleep. Tina knew all their orders by heart. The usual, she asked each one, already pouring coffee or setting down water with lemon just how they preferred it. She remembered that Frank's granddaughter had a dance recital, that Miguel from the construction crew was saving for his mother's surgery back in Mexico, that Lisa, the nurse, was planning a vacation to the mountains. How's school going? Asked Frank, folding his newspaper as Tina set down his breakfast. 2 eggs over easy, whole wheat toast, no butter. Good, she said, refilling his coffee cup. Got an A on my marketing project. 1 more year to go. You'll be running this place someday, he said with certainty. It was a conversation they'd had many times, and it always made Tina smile. The morning rush kept her moving constantly, taking orders, delivering plates steaming with food, clearing tables, making fresh coffee. Her feet began to ache around 10 a.m., but there was no time to rest. The diner was short-staffed, as usual, which meant more tables and bigger tips, but also more physical demand. During a rare quiet moment, Tina checked her phone. A text from her daughter's teacher reminded parents about the upcoming science fair project due next week. Tina's stomach knotted with anxiety. Between work shifts and classes, finding time to help Lily build a volcano seemed impossible. Yet somehow she would make it work. She always did. The lunch crowd brought business people from nearby offices, senior citizens taking advantage of the daily specials, and young mothers with toddlers in tow. Tina moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her smile never faltering. When a young boy spilled his chocolate milk, she cleaned it up quickly and brought him a new glass with a silly straw that made him giggle. "You're a lifesaver," his mother said, looking frazzled. "Been there," Tina winked. "My son once dumped an entire plate of spaghetti on a white carpet." These small human connections sustained her through the physical demands of the job. Each person who sat at her tables was going through their own struggles, and sometimes a friendly face and attentive service could brighten an otherwise difficult day. At 2 p.m., Tina's morning shift officially ended, giving her 3 hours before she needed to return for the dinner rush. These precious hours were usually spent running errands, studying at the library, or checking in on her children after school. Today, she needed to pay the electric bill in person. They had threatened to disconnect service due to her late payment last month. The line at the utility office moved slowly. Tina felt the weight of the $78 in her account, knowing that after paying this bill, there would be barely enough for gas to get to work until payday. The unexpected cost of Ben's new glasses last week had thrown off her carefully planned budget. She thought about the tips in her pocket from the morning shift. Nearly $65, not bad for a Thursday. That would help with groceries tomorrow. She'd become an expert at stretching meals, making a rotisserie chicken last for 3 dinners by transforming leftovers into soups and sandwiches. Her children never complained, though she wondered if they noticed how she sometimes claimed she'd already eaten when food ran short. After paying the bill, Tina rushed to the public library to squeeze in an hour of studying. The quiet atmosphere was a stark contrast to the noisy diner. She spread her textbooks across the table, diving into accounting principles with fierce concentration. Her professor had noticed her aptitude for numbers and encouraged her to consider financial management as a specialty. The thought of someday working in an office with benefits and paid time off seemed like an impossible dream. Yet she pursued it with determination. The alarm on her phone interrupted her studies. Time to pick up her children from the after-school program. The center charged extra for every minute parents were late, a fee Tina couldn't afford. Ben and Lily ran to her with excitement, brandishing artwork and spelling tests for her approval. She examined each paper with genuine interest, praising their efforts and asking questions about their day. These moments were precious, a reminder of why she pushed herself so hard. "Can we get ice cream?" Ben asked hopefully, his front tooth newly missing. Tina felt the familiar pang of having to say no. "Not today, buddy. But how about we make those special cookies this weekend?" she countered, relieved when both children cheered at the alternative. Back at the apartment, she had 45 minutes to help with homework, start a load of laundry, and prepare a quick dinner before heading back to work. Mrs. Gonzalez would return to stay with the kids for the evening. "Mom, why do you have to work 2 shifts?" Lily asked as Tina rushed around the kitchen, multitasking with practiced efficiency. "Because that's how I take care of us," Tina explained, checking Ben's math homework while stirring pasta on the stove. "And remember, it's not forever. When I finish school, things will be different." "Will you be home for movie nights then?" Ben asked. "More of them," she promised, kissing the top of his head. The guilt was always there, a shadow following her through each busy day. But so was the pride in showing her children what resilience looked like. As she hurried back to Molly's diner for the dinner shift, Tina allowed herself a moment of fatigue. Her shoulders slumped slightly as she waited at the bus stop, the weight of responsibility momentarily visible. But as the diner came into view, she straightened her back and fixed her smile in place. The evening crowd would be hungry, impatient, and expecting the cheerful waitress they knew. What they wouldn't see was the calculator in her mind constantly running numbers. Rent due in 2 weeks, Lily's outgrown shoes, the tuition payment for next semester. They wouldn't know that their server had been awake since 4:30 a.m., or that she would be up until midnight studying. They would only see her smile, genuine despite everything, as she asked, "What can I get for you today?" As she pushed through the diner door, Tina tucked away her worries and stepped into her role with practiced ease. The dinner rush awaited, and with it the tips that would help her family survive another day. One step at a time, one day at a time. That's how she lived, and somehow, against the odds, it was working. The Friday evening rush at Molly's diner had reached its peak. Every booth was filled, the clatter of silverware and hum of conversation creating a warm backdrop of noise. Tina moved between tables with practiced ease, her exhaustion hidden behind a professional smile. Friday nights were always busy, but they also brought the best tips, money she desperately needed after paying that electric bill. "Order up," Chuck called from the kitchen, sliding 2 plates onto the counter. Tina grabbed them, balancing a third on her forearm, a skill perfected over years of waitressing. "Here we go," she announced, setting the meals in front of the elderly couple in booth 7. "Meatloaf special and the grilled salmon. Can I get you folks anything else?" Mr. Peterson, a regular who came every Friday with his wife, smiled up at her. "Everything looks perfect, dear. How are those kids of yours?" Tina's face softened. "Growing too fast. Lily lost another tooth yesterday." These small connections with regulars made the job bearable on the hardest days. She refilled their water glasses before moving to check on her other tables. 6 tables at once was a juggling act, but Tina had it down to a science. The bell above the door jingled, and Tina glanced over to see a family of 4 enter the diner. They looked tired but well-dressed, not in fancy clothes, but in the put-together way of people who took care in their appearance despite limited means. The father wore a button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, the mother a simple blouse and slacks. Their 2 children, a boy around 9 and a girl who looked about 6, were quiet and well-behaved. Judy, the hostess, seated them in booth 12, which had just been cleared. It was in Tina's section. She finished taking an order from another table before approaching them with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Molly's," she greeted them, passing out menus. "Can I start you folks off with some drinks?" "Water is fine for the adults," the father said. He had kind eyes and the slightly worn look of someone who worked long hours. "Kids, what would you like?" "Can I have chocolate milk?" the little girl asked, looking up at her mother for permission. The mother hesitated almost imperceptibly, the slight pause of someone mentally calculating costs, before nodding. "Sure, honey. Just this once. Me too," the boy added quickly. 2 chocolate milks and 2 waters coming right up," Tina said, noticing how the father's eyes darted to the prices on the menu. She recognized the look. It was the same one she wore when taking her own children out for a rare treat. When she returned with their drinks, the family had decided on their meals. Nothing extravagant, the Friday special for the father, a chicken salad for the mother, and kids' meals for the children. Tina jotted down their orders, making a mental note to tell Chuck to make the kids' portions a little bigger than usual. Those children had the quiet hunger of kids who were taught not to ask for too much. As she worked her other tables, Tina kept an eye on the family. They weren't rowdy or demanding like some customers. The parents spoke quietly to each other while the children colored on the paper placemats with crayons Tina had brought them. The little girl had drawn what looked like a house with 4 stick figures standing outside it. The boy was creating an elaborate spaceship battle. "That's really good," Tina commented when she brought their food. The boy beamed at the compliment. "I want to design real spaceships someday," he told her, his eyes lighting up. "Well, you're off to a great start," she replied, arranging their plates on the table. The family ate with the appreciation of people who didn't dine out often. The little girl carefully cut her chicken nuggets into tiny pieces, making them last. The parents shared glances over their children's heads, the silent communication of couples who've weathered difficult times together. Tina checked on them halfway through their meal. "Everything tasting good?" "It's excellent, thank you," the mother replied. She had a gentle voice and tired eyes. "The salad is very fresh, glad to hear it." "Can I get you any refills?" The father looked at his children's nearly empty glasses. "Maybe just water refills. We're fine on the milk." Again, Tina noticed the careful consideration of extras. As she refilled their water glasses, she overheard the little girl whispering to her mother. "Will we still get dessert like you promised?" The mother stroked her daughter's hair. "We'll see, sweetheart. Let's finish dinner first." The Friday night crowd continued to cycle through the diner. Some tables emptied while new customers filled others. Tina kept moving, taking orders, delivering food, processing payments. Her feet ached and a dull pain had settled in her lower back, but she pushed through it. Friday nights often doubled her usual tips, money that would help buy groceries for the weekend. The family in booth 12 finished their meal, the plates nearly clean. The children looked hopefully at the dessert menu displayed on the table, but didn't ask about it directly. Tina approached to clear their plates. "Any room for dessert tonight?" she asked, knowing from experience that this was often where families on tight budgets had to draw the line. The parents exchanged looks. The father gave a small nod, and the mother turned to Tina. "Could we get one slice of chocolate cake with 2 forks for the children to share?" "Absolutely," Tina replied, touched by the parents' willingness to sacrifice their own dessert so their children could have a treat. "One slice of chocolate cake coming up." When she returned with the cake, the children's eyes widened. Chuck had added a swirl of whipped cream and a few extra chocolate shavings on top. The little girl clapped her hands in delight while the boy already had his fork ready. "Enjoy," Tina said, leaving them to savor the moment. From the corner of her eye, she saw the parents watching their children, with the bittersweet joy of parents who wished they could give more. As the children finished the last crumbs of cake, the father asked for the check. Tina printed it out and placed it on the table with a no rush and her usual thank you note scribbled at the bottom. A few minutes later, as she was ringing up another table, she noticed the father pull out his wallet and remove a credit card. He placed it in the check holder, and Tina picked it up during her next round. She ran the card through the payment system, but the machine beeped with a declined message. This happens sometimes, people forgetting which card had available credit or a bank's automatic fraud protection kicking in for unusual purchases. Tina returned to the table discreetly. "I'm sorry, but it seems this card didn't go through. Sometimes the machines can be finicky. Would you like to try another card?" A flash of embarrassment crossed the father's face, followed quickly by concern. He lowered his voice. "Yes, of course. Let me try my other one." The mother looked up, suddenly alert. A silent communication passed between them, the kind that happens when both partners recognize a potential problem but don't want to alarm their children. Tina took the second card with a reassuring smile and returned to the register. She ran it through, but again the machine declined the payment. Her heart sank, knowing she would have to return to the table with bad news. The family was now watching for her return, the parents with growing anxiety in their eyes. The children, sensing the tension, had stopped their chatter. "I'm really sorry," Tina said quietly, leaning down so others wouldn't hear. "This one didn't work either." The father's face flushed red. He fumbled in his wallet, pulling out a third card. "Let me try this one. It's my backup." The mother was now digging through her purse. "I might have enough cash," she whispered, but her expression revealed she knew she didn't. Tina took the third card, but she already had a feeling about the outcome. Sure enough, the system declined it as well. She hesitated before returning to the table, knowing the humiliation that awaited this family. When she approached again, the father looked up with a mixture of hope and dread. "I'm so sorry," she said softly, placing the card and receipt down. This one didn't work either. The color drained from the father's face. The mother's hands trembled slightly as she emptied her purse onto the table, counting out crumpled bills and loose change. "We have $27 and," she counted the coins, 65 cents. Tina glanced at the bill. 47.83s, they were short by more than $20. "I don't understand," the father said, his voice strained. "There should be available credit on at least one of them." He pulled out his phone, hands slightly shaking as he tried to check his accounts. The little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. "What's wrong, Mommy?" "Nothing, sweetie," the mother answered, but her voice cracked slightly. "Just grown-up stuff." The boy, older and more perceptive, watched with growing understanding. "Are we in trouble?" he asked quietly. "No, buddy, not at all," the father assured him, though his face showed the deep embarrassment of a provider unable to provide in that moment. People at nearby tables had begun to notice the situation. A few glanced over with curiosity or worse, pity. The family felt the eyes on them, their humiliation growing with each passing second. Tina saw the father's shoulders slump in defeat. "I don't know what to do," he admitted in a low voice. "I just got paid today. The money should be there." The mother reached across the table to touch his hand. "It's okay. Maybe there's a system problem with the bank." But Tina recognized the look of people facing a financial reality they hadn't been prepared for, the same look she'd worn many times herself. She thought about her own children, about the times she'd had to count pennies at the grocery store. She thought about her $78 bank balance, now even lower after paying bills. And in that moment, watching the family's distress and the children's confusion, Tina made a decision that would change more lives than just her own. Tina stood quietly for a moment, watching the family's distress deepen. The father was frantically checking his phone banking app, the mother gathering loose coins from the bottom of her purse. The children had grown uncomfortably still, picking up on their parents' anxiety the way children always do. She thought about her own bank balance, that precious $78 now reduced to around $45 after her bills. Friday's grocery money, the weekend cushion for her kids, but she also thought about the nights she'd lain awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she would make it through another tight week. The kindness of her neighbor who watched her children. The regular customer who had accidentally left an extra 20 under his coffee cup last Christmas. Sometimes survival depended on unexpected kindness. "Let me check something in the system," Tina said gently, taking the bill back from the table. "Sometimes our card machine has connectivity issues on busy nights." Relief flashed across the parents' faces, a momentary hope that technology, not their financial situation, was the problem. Tina walked back to the register, where Judy was ringing up another table. "Everything okay?" Judy asked, noticing Tina's thoughtful expression. "Yeah," Tina replied. "Hey, do you remember if we still have that policy for employees covering meals in special circumstances?" Years ago, the original owner of Molly's Diner had occasionally allowed staff to use their employee discount to help customers in genuine need. The current owner had never officially ended the practice, though it rarely came up. Judy raised an eyebrow but nodded slowly. "I believe that's still in place. Within reason, of course." Tina pulled out her own debit card, the one connected to her account with the dwindling $45. "This family's cards aren't working. I think they're having a rough time." "You sure about this?" Judy asked, her voice low. "That's your grocery money, isn't it?" "I'm sure," Tina said, swiping her card. "I've been where they are. Sometimes you just need someone to believe things will work out." The machine processed her payment, printing out a receipt for $47.83, nearly half of what she had left until payday. Tina took a deep breath and returned to the family's table. The father looked up expectantly, his phone still in hand. "I called the bank," he explained. "They say there might be a system delay with my direct deposit clearing." Tina smiled warmly. "Well, I have good news. Your meal has been taken care of." Confusion crossed their faces. The mother spoke first. "What do you mean?" "The restaurant has a policy," Tina explained, keeping her voice casual but quiet. "When our payment system has issues, we have a way to handle it internally." "Your dinner's covered." The father shook his head. "That can't be right. The cards were declined, not your system." "Sometimes it's hard to tell which end has the problem," Tina replied smoothly. "Either way, it's been taken care of." "By whom?" the mother asked, her brow furrowed with suspicion. "The diner," Tina said. It wasn't entirely a lie. She was part of the diner after all. "We'd rather make sure folks have a good experience than worry about technical glitches." The parents exchanged doubtful glances. The father leaned forward. "Listen, we don't want charity. We can come back tomorrow when the bank sorts this out." Tina recognized the pride in his voice, the same pride she felt when struggling to make ends meet without anyone knowing. She lowered her voice further. "It's not charity," she assured him. "It's just being human. We all have moments when things don't go as planned." She glanced meaningfully at the children who were watching the adults with worried expressions. The mother noticed Tina's look and seemed to understand. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "That's very kind," she said softly. "We'll find a way to repay the gesture." "Just pay it forward someday," Tina replied with a smile. "That's how the world keeps spinning, right?" The little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Does this mean we're okay?" "Yes, sweetie," her mother answered, stroking her hair. "Everything's fine. The nice lady helped us out. Can we come back here next time?" the boy asked, relief evident in his voice. "Absolutely," the father said, his embarrassment gradually giving way to gratitude as he looked at Tina. "We'll definitely be back." As the family prepared to leave, the father extended his hand to Tina. "Thank you," he said simply, but his eyes conveyed much more. "My name's David. This is my wife Rachel and our kids." "I'm Tina," she replied, shaking his hand. "It was my pleasure to serve you all tonight." The mother stepped forward and unexpectedly gave Tina a quick hug. You have no idea what this meant to us, she whispered. It's been a really tough month. Tina squeezed her shoulder in understanding. Trust me, I know exactly how that feels. After the family left, Tina watched through the window as they walked to their car. The parents held the children's hands, their posture more relaxed now. The little girl skipped every few steps. Something about the sight made the ache in Tina's feet less noticeable. That was a good thing you did, Chuck said, appearing beside her at the counter. The old cook had witnessed many acts of kindness over his decades at the diner. They needed it more than I did, Tina shrugged, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. Your kids have themselves a good mom, Chuck replied, patting her shoulder before returning to the kitchen. The rest of Tina's shift passed in a blur of orders, plates, and friendly conversation. She pushed thoughts of her dwindling bank account away, focusing instead on providing good service to earn tips that might make up some of the difference. By closing time, her feet throbbed and her back ached, but her apron pocket was heavy with tips. She counted them in the break room as she gathered her things, $87 in cash. Better than she'd expected for a Friday, though she'd worked hard for every dollar. The night bus was nearly empty as Tina headed home. She rested her head against the window, watching streetlights blur past. The city looked different at night, quieter, with pockets of light and activity amid the darkness. Like people, she thought. Everyone carrying their own light, their own struggles, invisible to passers-by. Mrs. Gonzalez was dozing on the couch when Tina unlocked her apartment door. The TV played quietly in the background, some late-night talk show. You're back, the older woman said, blinking awake. The children were good. They did all their homework before bed. Thank you, Tina said, helping her gather her things. I don't know what I'd do without you. Nonsense. We help each other, Mrs. Gonzalez replied. That's what neighbors do. After walking Mrs. Gonzalez to her apartment down the hall, Tina checked on her sleeping children. Lily had kicked off her blankets as usual. Tina tucked her in again, brushing hair from her forehead. Ben slept with his arm around his favorite stuffed dinosaur, his face peaceful. In these quiet moments, watching her children sleep, Tina found her purpose renewed. Every double shift, every aching muscle, every penny saved, it was all for them. For their future, for moments like these. In the kitchen, she counted out her tips again, setting aside money for groceries tomorrow. Even with what she'd spent on the family's dinner, she'd have enough to get through the weekend. It would be tight, but they'd manage. They always did. As she prepared for bed, Tina thought about the family from the diner. Their faces when she'd told them their meal was covered. The relief. The gratitude. The restored dignity. She hoped whatever financial trouble they were experiencing would resolve soon. She understood all too well how quickly things could spiral when living paycheck to paycheck. She set her alarm for 7 a.m., a luxury of sleeping in on Saturday before her afternoon shift, and climbed into bed. Despite her exhaustion, her mind kept returning to the moment she'd decided to pay for their meal. It had been instinctive, a recognition of shared struggle. She didn't regret it. Not even knowing she'd have to be extra careful with money until payday. Some things were worth more than the dollars they cost. As sleep began to claim her, Tina thought about what she'd said to the family. Just pay it forward someday. She believed deeply in that principle. Kindness creating more kindness. Generosity inspiring generosity. It was how people survived hard times, by holding each other up when the world felt heavy. She drifted off to sleep unaware that her small act of kindness had set larger wheels in motion. Unaware that the family whose meal she'd covered would remember her face, her name, and the quiet dignity with which she'd helped them. Unaware that sometimes the smallest gestures create the largest ripples. And completely unaware that in 2 days' time, her life would change in ways she could never have imagined. Sunday mornings at Molly's Diner were always packed. Families fresh from church services filled the booths, hungry for pancakes and bacon. Solo diners occupied counter seats, hiding behind newspapers or scrolling through phones. The air smelled of coffee and maple syrup, and the kitchen hissed with activity. Tina moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, balancing plates along her arm, refilling coffee cups without being asked. After Friday night, she'd picked up an extra Sunday morning shift to make up for the money she'd spent on the family's dinner. Her feet already ached, but the tips were good, and her children were spending the day with Mrs. Gonzalez's grandchildren at the community pool. Order up, Chuck called from the kitchen. Tina grabbed the plates, 2 breakfast specials, a short stack of blueberry pancakes, and a veggie omelet. "Sorry for the wait," she said, distributing the plates to a family of 4 at table 5. "Can I get you folks anything else?" Her Sunday continued like any other, busy, exhausting, but profitable. By the time the lunch crowd thinned out, Tina had made enough in tips to replace what she'd spent on Friday night's act of kindness, with a little extra besides. Her shift would end at 3, giving her time to pick up her children and help Lily with her science project before preparing for the week ahead. At 2:30, as the diner quieted to a lull between lunch and dinner, the bell above the door chimed. Tina was wiping down a recently vacated booth and glanced up out of habit. A man entered alone. He stood just inside the doorway for a moment, surveying the room with the careful assessment of someone looking for a particular person. He wore a tailored gray suit that Tina could tell at a glance cost more than her monthly rent. His silver-streaked dark hair was neatly styled, and though he was likely in his 50s, he carried himself with the energy of someone younger. Judy approached him with a menu. "Just one today?" "Actually," the man replied, his voice carrying across the quieter diner. "I'm looking for someone who works here. A waitress named Tina." Tina froze, dish rag in hand. In her 3 years at Molly's, no one had ever come specifically looking for her, especially not someone in a suit like that. Her mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Was it something to do with her student loans? Tax problems? Some issue with her children's school? Judy pointed in her direction. "Tina's right over there." The man thanked Judy and walked toward Tina with confident steps. Up close, his suit looked even more expensive. He carried a leather briefcase that gleamed with the soft shine of real quality. "Tina?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Robert Thompson. I was hoping to speak with you for a few minutes." Tina wiped her hand on her apron before shaking his. Yes, I'm Tina. Is something wrong?" Robert smiled, revealing perfect teeth. "Not at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. Is there somewhere we could sit down and talk?" Tina glanced at the clock. "My shift ends in about 20 minutes. I suppose we could sit at one of the empty booths until then." She led him to a clean booth at the far end of the diner, away from the few remaining customers. Her mind still raced with possibilities. People in suits this nice didn't just show up at diners looking for waitresses with good news. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" she offered automatically. "Coffee would be great." "Thank you," Robert replied. Tina fetched 2 cups of coffee, took a deep breath to steady her nerves, and slid into the booth across from the stranger. "So, Mr. Thompson, how can I help you?" she asked, trying to sound professional despite her growing anxiety. Robert took a sip of coffee before answering. "First, please call me Robert. And second, I think the question is how I can help you." Tina's brow furrowed in confusion. "I don't understand." "I'm the CEO of Northeast Banking Corporation," he said simply. Tina waited for him to continue, unsure how this related to her in any way. "2 nights ago," Robert continued, "you covered a dinner bill for a family whose credit cards were declined." Understanding dawned on Tina. "Oh, the family from Friday night." "Yes, I did." "How did you know about that?" Robert smiled. "The father of that family is David Wilson. He's my executive assistant." Tina's eyes widened. "Executive assistant?" "But they seemed... Not all financial difficulties are what they seem," Robert explained gently. "David and his family are generally comfortable, but they experienced a banking error that froze their accounts temporarily. A security algorithm flagged some recent purchases as potentially fraudulent and automatically suspended access to their funds." Tina nodded slowly, processing this information. "I see, so it really was a technical issue, just not with our card reader." "Exactly. The problem was resolved yesterday morning, but by then, David had already told me about your kindness." Robert leaned forward slightly. He was incredibly moved by what you did. He said you handled the situation with such grace and dignity that his children never realized what was happening. Tina felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It wasn't a big deal. I've been in tight spots before. Sometimes you just need someone to help you through a rough moment." "That's precisely why I'm here," Robert said, his expression growing more serious. "David mentioned that you're working double shifts while raising 2 children and studying for a degree. He was quite affected by your generosity, especially since he suspected you might not have been able to afford it yourself." Tina shifted uncomfortably. She didn't like the idea of anyone, especially strangers discussing her financial situation. Like I said, it wasn't a big deal, she repeated. I'm glad the family is okay. Robert reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope, which he slid across the table. What's this? Tina asked, not touching the envelope. First, it's a reimbursement for the meal, Robert explained. David insisted on it. But it's also something more. Tina cautiously opened the envelope. Inside was a check for far more than the $47.83 she'd paid for the family's meal. Her eyes widened at the amount. $500. I can't accept this, she said immediately, trying to hand the envelope back. I appreciate the thought, but it wasn't about money. I know it wasn't, Robert said, making no move to take the envelope. That's precisely why David and I want you to have it. People who give when they have little themselves are rare, Tina. Still, this is too much, she insisted. Consider it a thank you then, Robert said. But that's not the only reason I came here today. Tina looked up from the check, confused. What do you mean? Northeast Banking has a community outreach program, Robert explained. We work with local organizations to provide financial education, support for small businesses, and various other community services. We've been looking to expand that department, and we need people with both financial knowledge and genuine empathy. Tina's confusion deepened. I'm not sure I follow. David mentioned you're studying business management with a focus on finance. Is that right? Yes, but I still have a year left before I finish my degree, Tina replied, wondering how the family had learned that detail. I must have mentioned it while taking their order, she realized. We believe in investing in potential, Robert continued. Northeast Banking has a program for employees completing their degrees. Flexible hours, tuition assistance, and practical experience in their field of study. The implications of what he was saying slowly dawned on Tina. Are you offering me a job? Robert nodded. I'd like you to come to our main office tomorrow to discuss the possibility. The position would be part-time until you complete your degree, with guaranteed full-time employment afterward if the arrangement works for both of us. Tina sat back, speechless. After a moment, she found her voice. Mr. Thompson, Robert, this seems too good to be true. You don't even know me. I know what David told me, and I know what I've observed in our brief conversation, Robert replied. Sometimes character reveals itself in single moments of choice. Your choice on Friday night told me more about you than a resume ever could. Tina's mind raced. A job at a bank, flexible hours, tuition assistance. It would mean no more double shifts, more time with her children, the chance to finish her degree without constant financial stress. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say you'll come tomorrow for a proper interview, Robert suggested. No commitment yet, just a conversation about possibilities. What about my children? I'd need to arrange childcare. Bring them along, Robert said simply. Our office has a recreation room for employees' children. They can play there while we talk. Judy appeared beside their booth. Tina, your shift's over. Andy just arrived to take over. Thank you, Tina responded automatically, her mind still processing everything Robert had said. As Judy walked away, Robert reached into his pocket and handed Tina a business card with the Northeast Banking logo embossed in silver. Tomorrow at 10? Our address is on the card. Tina took the card, feeling as though she was in a dream. Yes, I'll be there. Robert stood and extended his hand. I'm looking forward to it, Tina. What you did for David's family was a small act in your eyes, but it revealed something important about who you are. In business and in life, character matters more than almost anything else. After Robert left, Tina remained in the booth for several minutes, staring at the business card and the check. The possibility of a new life, one without constant financial worry, with regular hours and benefits, with time to be both a professional and a mother, seemed suddenly within reach. She finally gathered her things, tucked the envelope carefully into her purse, and clocked out. As she walked to the bus stop, the weight of uncertainty she'd carried for years felt somehow lighter. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, everything might change. For the first time in a long while, Tina allowed herself to hope. Not just for survival, but for something more. A future where kindness was rewarded. Where hard work led to opportunity. Where her children might see that good things could happen even when life seemed most difficult. The business card in her pocket felt like a promise. Tomorrow would bring whatever it would bring, but tonight, she would tell her children a story about how sometimes the smallest actions can lead to the biggest changes. The Northeast Banking Corporation headquarters towered above the surrounding buildings, its glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. Tina stood on the sidewalk holding her children's hands, staring up at the imposing structure. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. "Is this where the rich people work, Mom?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's just a place where people help other people with money," Tina explained, trying to sound more confident than she felt. She had dressed in her best outfit, a navy blue skirt and white blouse she normally saved for parent-teacher conferences. Her resume, freshly printed at the library yesterday evening, felt flimsy in her purse compared to the solid credentials of people who normally walked through those glass doors. Ben tugged at her hand. "Are we going in or are we just going to look at it all day?" Tina took a deep breath. "We're going in. Remember what I told you both. You'll be playing in a special room while Mom talks to some people about a job." The lobby was all marble and steel, with a security desk and turnstiles requiring badge access. Tina approached the receptionist, her children suddenly quiet and well-behaved in the unfamiliar environment. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Tina Carter. I have a 10 o'clock appointment with Robert Thompson." The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly. Clearly, not many people walked in off the street with appointments with the CEO. "Of course. Ms. Carter, Mr. Thompson is expecting you." She made a quick call, then handed Tina a visitor's badge. "Someone will be down to escort you up." Within minutes, a young woman in a crisp pantsuit appeared. "Ms. Carter? I'm Grace, Mr. Thompson's assistant. Welcome to Northeast Banking." She smiled warmly at the children. "And these must be Lily and Ben." Tina nodded, surprised that the woman knew her children's names. "We have a wonderful recreation room set up for them," Grace continued. "It has games, books, art supplies, and a child care professional who runs activities. Would you like to see it before your meeting?" The children's eyes lit up at the description, their initial shyness fading. Grace led them all to an elevator, which whisked them to the 14th floor. The recreation room turned out to be a bright, spacious area with colorful furniture, bookshelves, craft tables, and a small climbing structure. A friendly woman introduced herself as Ms. Patel, the child care coordinator. "Mom, can we stay here forever?" Ben whispered loudly, eyeing the collection of building blocks in the corner. Tina laughed, her nervousness easing slightly at her children's excitement. "Just for a little while. Be good, okay? Listen to Ms. Patel." After ensuring her children were settled, Tina followed Grace to the executive floor. The hallways were lined with artwork, the carpet plush beneath her sensible shoes. They stopped outside a corner office with a mahogany door. "Mr. Thompson is ready for you," Grace said, opening the door. Robert's office was spacious but less intimidating than Tina had imagined. Large windows offered a view of the city, and family photos dotted his desk alongside financial reports and industry awards. "Tina, I'm so glad you made it," Robert greeted her, rising from his desk. He gestured to a seating area with comfortable chairs. "Did your children get settled in the recreation room?" "Yes, thank you," Tina replied, sitting down carefully. "They may never want to leave," Robert smiled. "That room was actually my wife's idea. She believed workplaces should be more family-friendly." He sat across from her. "Before we start, would you like some coffee or tea?" "Coffee would be nice, thank you." As Grace brought in a tray with coffee and pastries, Robert asked casual questions about Tina's morning, her children, and her studies. His genuine interest helped ease her nervousness. "So," Robert said finally, "let's talk about why you're here." "Honestly, I'm still not sure," Tina admitted. "This all seems so unexpected. People don't usually get job offers because they covered someone's dinner." Robert chuckled. "Perhaps not. But your action revealed something important. Integrity and compassion, even at personal cost. Those qualities can't be taught in business school." He opened a folder on the coffee table between them. "I've reviewed your resume. Your academic record is impressive, especially considering you're working full-time while raising 2 children alone." "Thank you," Tina said. "It hasn't been easy, but I'm determined to build a better future for my kids. That determination is exactly why I think you'd be perfect for our community outreach program." Robert leaned forward slightly. "Our bank serves people from all economic backgrounds. Too often, financial institutions focus only on those who already have wealth. I believe we have a responsibility to help everyone build financial security." He explained the position: a community financial advocate who would work directly with local organizations, schools and individuals to provide financial education and support. The role would be part-time until Tina completed her degree, with flexible hours built around her class schedule. The salary would be $52,000 annually, prorated for part-time hours, with full benefits including health insurance, paid time off, and child care assistance. Robert watched Tina's expression as he named the figure. Once you complete your degree, the position becomes full-time with a significant salary increase. Tina tried to maintain her composure, though her heart raced. The starting salary was already more than double what she made at the diner, even with tips. With benefits and child care assistance, it would transform her family's life completely. That's extremely generous, she managed to say. But I have to ask, why me? Surely there are more qualified candidates. Technical qualifications can be acquired, Robert replied. Character is built over a lifetime. David told me how you handled that situation on Friday, with discretion and dignity. You didn't make them feel like charity cases. You presented it as a system error to preserve their pride. That showed remarkable emotional intelligence. Robert stood and walked to the window. My father was a factory worker, he said, surprising Tina with the personal revelation. When I was 10, his plant closed without warning. For 6 months, he worked 3 part-time jobs while looking for steady employment. One night at a restaurant much like your diner, his credit card was declined while treating my mother to a rare night out for their anniversary. He turned back to Tina. The waitress there did not handle it with grace. My parents left humiliated, and I never forgot the shame in my father's eyes. When David told me what you did, it reminded me that small moments of kindness or cruelty can leave lasting impressions. Tina nodded, understanding now why her actions had resonated so deeply. So, Robert continued, I have a proposal. A 2-month paid trial period. You continue your studies, work the hours you can, and we see if this role fits you as well as I believe it will. No obligation beyond that if either of us feels it isn't working out. And my children? Tina asked. Our child care facility is available whenever you're working. During school hours. We have after-school programs as well. The reality of what was being offered began to sink in. A career with growth potential, financial stability, time for her studies and her children, health care. The constant weight of anxiety she'd carried for years might finally lift. When would this start? She asked. How about next Monday? That gives you time to arrange things at the diner. Tina thought about Molly's, about Chuck and Judy and the regular customers she'd come to know so well. She'd miss them, but this opportunity wasn't just about her. It was about giving her children the security they deserved. I'd like to accept your offer, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion welling inside her. Robert smiled and extended his hand. Welcome to Northeast Banking, Tina. After finalizing details with Human Resources, Tina collected her children from the recreation room. They chattered excitedly about the games they'd played and the snacks they'd been given. Mom, can we come back tomorrow? Lily asked. Tina smiled. Not tomorrow, but soon. Very soon. As they left the building, Tina looked up at its gleaming exterior once more. This time, instead of intimidation, she felt possibility. One small act of kindness, a moment of connection between struggling people, had somehow opened an unexpected door. That evening, as her children slept, Tina sat at her small kitchen table with a notepad, making plans. She would give proper notice at the diner. She would adjust her class schedule. She would finally take Mrs. Gonzalez and her grandchildren out for that thank-you dinner she'd always wanted to provide. And someday, when she was established in her new career, she would find ways to help others who were struggling as she had been. The cycle of kindness would continue, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Tina looked at the business card Robert had given her, now prominently displayed on her refrigerator. Her mother had always told her that kindness never went to waste, even when it seemed no one was watching. Perhaps she had been right after all. A simple meal paid for on a Friday night. A struggling waitress and an embarrassed family. A CEO who remembered what it meant to be treated with dignity during difficult times. Small moments that changed everything.